So Jay Slater's supposed friends gave new testimony and never before seen details about what happened to Jay in his final moments. Now, many users across the internet are calling out their lies and begging the UK police to investigate them further. Because me and Gabby really feel that the Spanish police botched the investigation by letting these friends leave Tenerife soon after Jay went missing without a proper investigation. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can hang out with me and Miss Gabby, the best private investigator on all of YouTube, who works for treats.
If I'm guilty, then arrest me then.
So this guy is Ayub Qassim, aka Johnny Vegas, aka Whispers, who I think should be really called Lispers. And these two were the last people to see Jay Slater alive. Ayub just so happened to spend 11 years in the cage for dealing substances, and they gave brand new testimony of the events that transpired the night Jay Slater disappeared. And Cybersleuths are pointing out how his story has completely changed and was embellished with new and very questionable details. So one of the big mysteries in the Jay Slater case was, why would Jay travel 23 miles north to a remote part of Tenerife the night he disappeared, when his accommodation at the bottom here was right beside the rave he went to in the middle of all the action in a resort town of Los Cristianos. And here's Ayub's questionable explanation about why Jay went back to their B&B.
Bro, he looked at me and said, bro, I ain't got the key for my place. Them lot are gone back left and that. Can I roll with you, man?
So Ayub in that statement said that the reason Jay went back to their Airbnb in Masca was because Jay, quote, lost his key, end quote, which is a very new detail I've never heard before up until this testimony. Which doesn't make any sense because Jay was staying at an accommodation he shared with Lucy that night. So if he had lost his key at the energy rave, he could have just went back with Lucy, who most likely had the key to let him in. Ayub's new statement is a complete contradiction from his original story he told the Daily Mail weeks ago. Ayub originally said, quote, Jay wanted to carry on partying and that he hadn't anywhere to stay, so he invited him back to his rental, end quote, which was a straight up lie because he did have somewhere to stay, which was Lucy's place. There was no mention of the key in the statement either, and one of the biggest telltale signs of a liar is that they can't keep their story straight. And the reason for that is, well, because it's easier to remember the truth and harder to recall a lie. So a forensic expert says, quote, a liar may make up things as they go. They may also add excessive detail to convince themselves or others of what they are saying, end quote. So this key detail is entirely new. And as Wax Unfiltered pointed out, Ayub's body language is just way off.
Do I know Lucy?
Did you see the way he touched his nose when he repeated the question?
I know her a little bit. I know her through my friends. Like, do you know what I mean?
A little bit. A proven fact is when you are trying to make up a lie or when you're trying to make something up, you just look to the left. You look to the left. When you are trying to remember something, you actually look to the right. So when someone asks you a question and you're trying to remember the answer, you're actually looking to the right.
Yeah, and many people pointed out that he probably did know Lucy because it was the same blanket at the B&B as was at Lucy's accommodation. People already thought Ayub's reasoning for taking Jay back to the B&B was sketchy enough. I mean, Ayub is 31 years old and Jay is only 19. So what business do they have to be being together that night so late at night? But his story about bringing Jay back to continue the party doesn't even make sense from the get-go, because in his statement to the Daily Mail, he said that he and Rocky just immediately went straight to bed when they were inside the B&B. So Ayub's original statement said, quote, once at the property, his friend opened the door and went to the left and went straight to bed, end quote. Which begs the question, if Jay really went back to the B&B to party, why would they immediately go straight to sleep? And if Jay wanted to continue on partying, wouldn't he just stay behind the resort town of Los Cristianos and not some rural village away from all the action? There would be no party happening in the remote village of Masca. And the next clip I'm about to show you again completely contradicts his original statement.
But his mate Shit, wow. Well, my mate was sleeping. Rocky, like, I don't even have to say.
Yeah, I was.
You're here now. Like,
Well,
you know what I mean?
lit that night. I got drunk. I was sleeping in the car.
All right, so in that clip, his friend Rocky had to be told by Ayub that he was asleep. I mean, if Rocky actually fell asleep, wouldn't he have been able to remember that detail himself? And going back to the Daily Mail statement, Ayub said Rocky made it inside the B&B and went straight to bed. But now he's saying Rocky was asleep in the car, meaning Rocky didn't make it to the bed at the B&B, which is a complete contradiction of what he originally said once again. Ayub also slips up in that clip I just showed you, saying that, quote, Jay's mate, end quote, was asleep, and catches himself saying that and immediately corrects himself saying, quote, my mate, end quote. And many people think that indicates that Brandon or Haji was there at the B&B as well. People are also saying right now on TikTok that Haji isn't showing his face or doing any media appearances for that matter, because his face has bruises and that Ayub had punched Jay twice, which is unconfirmed, but is a major story all over TikTok saying that there was a fight that occurred at this B&B. Ayub, in this disaster of a live stream, goes on to say that there's a video which exists of Jay behind the camera with Ayub filming as they both make fun of Rocky in the car. This video has not been released, and many people think it's because it also shows that Brandon, Jay's mate, was with them. Ayub goes on to say that he was woken up by a buzzer, but down the rapids went to the B&B they were staying at and proved that there was no buzzer.
It's just a light switch. It's a light switch for that.
But there was a lot of flies, and many people think Jay's body might have been in there. Ayub brought up the 2 knives Jay was carrying that night because Jay was apparently scared as he was trying to sell the watch he had just stolen outside of the NRG rave. Ayub said that he got this information about the 2 knives from the private investigator Mark Williams Thomas, but PI MWT never said that detail.
Detective guy said, oh, he had 2 knives on him. And he left scared.
That 2 knives detail came from a deleted Snapchat his friend screenshotted and sent to Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan. So the only way for Ayub to know this detail about the 2 knives is if he paid very close attention to the Facebook groups or he accessed Jay's phone himself, which Jay's aunt revealed on TikTok was wiped clean of any evidence. The Snapchat from Jay himself reads, quote, yes, cuz ended up getting thrown out of there with 2 Molly kids, just took an AP off some C-word on the way to sell it for 10 quid, end quote. And many cybersleuths think the 2 Molly kids is short for some Molly kids, which are, you guessed it, Rocky and Ayub, which we are seeing in this live stream. And his friend explains to Jay's mother that Jay was hoping to sell this watch he had just stolen with the help of these 2 Somali men to pay off a debt he owed to dealers. And Ayub being a convicted dealer and being one of the last people to see Jay alive, well, it doesn't really look too good. And to Gabby, Jay going back to this remote B&B to sell a watch to pay off a dealer seems to make more sense by the day as opposed to Ayub's story about Jay going back to party because he lost a key. I mean, it will be so interesting to find out if this AP watch was with Jay when his body was retrieved from that ravine. I mean, with all these ever-changing stories coming from these 2 men, I really pray that his family gets an inquest in the UK so they can conduct their own interview and get answers. Both men could be considered key people in Jay's complex case as they are among the last people to see him before his tragic final walk. And Gabby personally thinks someone helped Jay on his way over that cliff. So what do you guys think? Sound off in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe by hitting my face here, and let's roll the outro.